Why TV tropes?
Why must you steal me away for hours?
Hello, fellow literary luminaries, and welcome to Top 5. That's 10. Hello, fellow literary luminaries. Welcome to Top 5 Wednesdays. This is a Goodreads group, and we pick the top 5 of a whole bunch of different topics, obviously every week. That would make sense. I will put a link to the Goodreads group down below. But for today, the top 5 that we are choosing is your top 5 favorite character tropes. Hence me being stuck on TV tropes for much longer than I wanted to be. This is a really interesting one because I don't really think necessarily in terms of character tropes, so a lot of me being on the website was figuring out, I really like this character, what tropes apply to him and why, which one of them is why I like them. Which was a challenge, but I do think I have 5. I actually have 5.5 because of a character, but you'll see when I get there. So, for right now, number 1. The informed loner. Now, this is described as being a character who identifies as a loner, says that they don't do well around people, doesn't want anyone around them, and yet still manages to be around people. And that's really where they seem to work best. Examples of this from characters I really like are Death from the Discworld series and House from the TV show of the same name. And thus probably also Sherlock Holmes, given that House is basically just Sherlock as a doctor in the modern day. In a lot of ways, my main character from one of the books that I'm working on is one of these, though I don't think he would necessarily consider himself a loner. He just sort of considers himself as I should not be around people. Not that he doesn't like it. Number 2, the badass pacifist. I like to think that I could come across as this, maybe, if someone wrote stories where I was much more interesting than I am. The badass pacifist is a character who uses no violence whatsoever, absolutely, and still manages to be one of the coolest people in all of forever. The 2 main characters that I really like that fit this trope are Vash the Stampede from the anime Trigun. There's probably a manga of that as well, but I haven't read the manga. And Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. Atticus is one of my all-time favorite characters ever. Ever. I love Atticus Finch. And Atticus makes a real point throughout Mockingbird to talk about the fact that he's a pacifist. He mentions that he hasn't shot a gun in 35 years, and yet, just watch any interaction he has with someone that doesn't like him. He stares at you and people back down. Atticus Finch. Number 3, and this one is the easiest to pick out for people that know me. Tall, dark, and handsome. That's really sort of my type for, the optimum guy. But it's also one of my favorite tropes because a lot of times you get very interesting characters that fit this because they are such a well-known trope. And so usually there's a whole bunch of other character tropes that go along with them that really build the intrigue of the character. A few descriptions of this particular trope are Gilbert Nightray from the anime Pandora Hearts, Sebastian Michaelis from Black Butler, Rhett Butler from Gone with the Wind. Despite the fact that I hate Gone with the Wind, Rhett was always the only character I liked, because he seemed to have the most personality and wasn't useless. So it fits. And then, of course, Gale from the Hunger Games series. All fit the stereotype, the trope of tall, dark, and handsome. Number 4, a related trope to tall, dark, and handsome, the dark and tortured past. Most people that know me know that I like doing this to my characters a lot, and so I am naturally drawn to them in terms of characters that I watch. This is, the character that seems all nice and everything is fine, and then you get to know them and all sorts of awful, terrible things have happened to them in the past. So, Examples of this that I really enjoy are probably the first that really caught my eye would be Tobias from the Animorph series. He had so much going on. I can't remember, I haven't read them in a really long time, but like his dad left or was dead. His mother like didn't know who he was. He got shipped around from his aunts and uncles. Nobody liked Tobias. And then he got stuck as a hawk. That's not the best way to spend your, teenage years. The Phantom from Phantom of the Opera, who, especially if you look back at like the original book of Phantom de l'Opera by Gaston Leroux, or even if you look into some of the other pseudo-reels things that go on, Eric has an awful backstory, and he's still one of my favorite characters ever. I hate Raoul. And of course, one that appears only in video game and manga, as far as I know, is Miles Edgeworth of the Ace Attorney series. Edgeworth goes through, I think his mother's dead. His father is an attorney that dies in a dramatic fashion. It leaves Edgeworth scarred and afraid of elevators, and very, solemn, serious, goes off to Germany and becomes a terrible person, only to be redeemed later. And I love these characters, especially because a lot of times when you see someone with a dark and troubled past, many of them throughout the course of the story have to come to terms with this past, and that's used as part of their character development, which I think can be a lot of fun. And the fifth character trope that I am such a fan of is the deadpan snarker. And this is really one of my all-time favorites, especially when I'm reading. I love the characters that, deliver the witty one-liners that leave you just sort of staring blankly at the page going, oh my god, did they really just say that? I love characters like this. Examples that I really enjoy are, well, most of the cast of The Song of Ice and Fire, but specifically Tyrion Lannister, because Tyrion is a walking deadpan snarker line throughout everything. Haymitch Abernathy from the Hunger Games series. Again, most of what Haymitch ever says is deadpan snark, and it's wonderful. Again, Sherlock Holmes, particularly in the BBC series, but he does it in the books as well. And then Archie Goodwin, who is from the Nero Wolfe series by Rex Stout, which is an older series about a detective, I believe, named Nero Wolfe, and Archie is his companion, and Archie, again, does deadpan snark like the best of them. I did say that I had 5.5 that I was going to do, because the half point, I have to give a shout out to one of my all-time favorite characters who didn't quite fit in any of these. He could fit into a couple of them, but it would really be a little bit of bending. But the other trope that I really enjoy is the jerk with the heart of gold. And for this particular one, I was looking at Severus Snape from Harry Potter. It's really sort of the quintessential look of, wow, you're an awful person, you do all these terrible things, why are you so mean all the time? And then as you move on, I'm not really worried about spoilers because Harry Potter's been out for a while. But still, you learn more about the character, you learn more about why he is the way he is, and it really just sort of fleshes out the character that way. So those are my top 5 favorite character tropes. What are some of yours? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And until next time, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome content, and I will see you all later. But for today, the top 5 that we are choosing, this is all awful. Many of them throughout the course of the story have to come to terms with this past, and that's used as part of their character development, which I think... Hello, fellow Gale from the Hunger Games series. Car